test class based interview questions that can really help you in your next Salesforce interview. So let's get started with our first question, which states that can test class have constructors and when do they run? Okay, so basically if you are writing a test class, the question is that if you are writing a test class, can we have a constructor inside the test class, and if we have it, when can we run it, or how can we execute that test constructor over here? Okay, so what I'm trying to do over here is that I have already created a test class with named as learn test class, and this is where the constructor I have created over here. Okay, and I have created a method as well for just for running purposes. So if I save it right now, yes, it does allows me to save or create a constructor inside our test class. Okay, so it does not gives any error right now when I'm trying to create a constructor inside the test class. But let's see when does it executes. Okay, if I run this test class, okay, most probably no logs will get generated at all. Okay, the reason is because, okay, basically speaking, this test class or this constructor of this test class won't get executed at all, and the reason is because the constructor only executes when you create an object. But over here in the scenario which I was working on right now, we have no object at all. Like when I was trying to execute, I was not creating any object at all. Okay, so let's move on to our next question, which specifically states that I am using a setup method in the test class while my class has see all data equals to true. In this case, will the test class use setup method data or actual Salesforce data? Or I mean, as we have set up the see all data equals to true. So simply what this specific question says is that right now what I have done is I have used see all data equals to true. Okay, and I have at the rate test setup method as well. Okay, I will say public static void or public void setup method, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create some records over here. Okay, create records over here, and then I have a method over at the bottom as well at the rate is test public static void my method. Okay, so the question is, if I'm going to run this test class, is it going to consider the record? I mean, if I run this method, okay, if I'm writing some logic inside it, which records will it consider? Will it consider it from the setup method, or will it consider from see all data equals to true? Okay, so let's try to save it and let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm getting an error, and the error is that, okay, test class cannot be annotated with see all data equals to true. Okay, test class cannot be annotated with see all equals to true. Okay, so because I have a setup method. Okay, so in very simple terms, if I like to tell you is that if you have see all data equals to true, then you cannot have a setup method. Okay, static void. So if I'm trying to create any setup method over here, okay, and I have also have see all data equals to true, that's not allowed. Okay, so either I have setup method or either I will have see all data equals to true. Okay, both of them are not possible at the same time, because then it will create a confusion whether the records will get picked up from Salesforce or from the setup method. So both you cannot have. Okay, one of them you can have for sure. Okay, either setup method or either see all data equals to true. So the answer to this question is that if I have both of this, okay, of course it's going to give me an error. So either I have to give see all data equals to true, or either I have to keep the setup method, so that the test class do not get confused where the data needs to be picked from. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which states that we have a trigger that verifies if contact phone number is not Indian, then throw an error. For such apex, how can we write a test class? Okay, so basically we have a trigger. Okay, and the trigger states that if phone number, okay, if phone is not equal, does not starts with, I'm just writing a pseudocode. Okay, so if it does not starts with +91 and phone number dot length is equal to let's say 13, in case if it starts with +91. So if length is 13, then I'm writing some trigger, I'm throwing an error. Okay, and if you want to write a test class for the same, what's going to happen is that you will get an error. So basically, if I am trying to write a test class for the same, what I'm going to do is that I am going to just create the record. Okay, basically what I will do is inside the @test setup method, what I'm going to do is that basically I will just go ahead and public static void, I'll say setup method. In setup method I will just go ahead and create a contact. Okay, just normal straightforward contact, nothing else. Okay, and if I try to write is test method in this scenario, public static void my method, and if I try to write, if I just try to go and query the contact, like I will try to query the contact, I will write it as query. Okay, I queried the contact, and when I queried, I just changed the phone number to, let's say, something else, like something like this. Okay, and because I want to test whether this is throwing an error from the test class, if I try to update the con over here, it's going to directly give me an error stating that okay, your phone number should be, it will throw this error if I run this kind of test class. Okay, but you still want to test this scenario, right? You want to test this scenario from the test class that if phone number length is greater than 13, if it starts with +91, if it does not starts with +91, then we are throwing an error, right? So over here, if you want to test this kind of functionality, okay, if it does not starts with, then we are throwing an error. So if we try to test this kind of scenario, the test class will fail directly. The test class will fail. So if you want to test this kind of scenario, you have to go ahead and use try catch block. Okay, so whatever update you are doing, don't do it directly. Okay, do it inside try catch block. Okay, so if you are writing any test class for the error scenarios or throwing error scenarios or getting an error scenarios, try to enclose it within the try catch block over here. Okay, now before we move to the last question, if you have any upcoming interview and you don't feel confident enough before sitting for any kind of interview, you can have one-to-one mock interview with me by clicking on the top met link below. So let's move on to our last question, which states that can test methods have the parameters? Okay, so the simply is that I have one test method right now. Okay, I will name it as properly my method, and can this method have parameter or not? That's what it specifies. Okay, so let's check. Let's say I will give string name over here. Is it allowed or not? Let's see. And the answer is no. Okay, test method cannot have parameters. Test method must be parameterless. So this is what I have to cover in this specific videos. If you found this video helpful, I request you to please like this video and do subscribe to my channel.